A poster on Coughlin's channel made the claim that Fringe Elements was autistic. I can't verify this might be true, but if he is on the spectrum like myself, it might explain a lot of his mentality. It doesn't, however, explain why he has to be a total asshole about it. I've been reading a book called Asperger's from the Inside Out by Michael John Carley, who himself has Asperger's. The section discussing the job market was me all the way. When he found a job he at least somewhat liked, he did two major things wrong that ended up getting him fired. First off, he didn't use break times to socialize, and secondly, he spent his time thinking of ways his company could be improved. These are both bad things to do in a big company, but no one tells you that, and no one tells you why. As much of a complete waste as it seemed to me for there to be so many people taking breaks and the appearance of laziness, a job is considered much more than just a way to earn a paycheck. It's considered a community. Of course, I'd spent most of my life working in fast food, grocery, or retail, where they give a half-assed attempt at community, but there's really nothing. Community cohesion keeps employees working, reduces stress, increases communication, and promotes networking, things I was completely unaware of as important or advantageous to the company, because both Mr. Carley and I didn't mingle, mostly because we were focused on work and wanted to work harder to get recognized in the company for being better than the rest of these slacking time wasters. We gave off the appearance that we didn't like the people we worked with. This obliviousness to social nuance leads to the other thing I did wrong, finding problems to be fixed in the system. This is bad, besides the fact that we don't know all the nuances and research done to make that environment as long-term efficient as possible, and the system was designed by a mix of planning or organic growing to fit people. It creates the appearance that we're unhappy with our jobs. So when the chopping block happens, guess who goes first? Us! That seems to be the story of Asperger's. Everything is supposed to be logical or black and white. Puzzles are something we're good at, and many times we outgrow logic puzzles because they don't show practical value and seem like a waste of time, and we moved on to unsolved problems. The way you deal with unsolved problems is completely break down the problem and define the problem at its most basic. You try and figure out how to use these mechanisms to fix the problem. This is why Asperger's are so good in the academia realm of science, math, and many times music, and admired for it. Unfortunately, in the rest of the job world, we don't do so well because the rest of the job world isn't black and white logical solving. In human interaction, social nuance, and mindless work. Many of us want to change the system or a problem in the world, so we focus on the negative and appear negative to people around us. I have been a downer for many years, and no one likes a downer in a good time. But focusing on problems and the mechanisms was my obsession. The logic released serotonin for me because I believed I could figure out an end-all solution to the puzzle. Other people just felt helpless to do anything about it, so they felt depressed and cut me off. The downside is, if you focus on a problem in a system so much, you really can't see the positives in it. Which is why, when I listened to Ron Paul, he made so much sense to me. When I listened to Fringe Elements, back when he was Confederal Socialist, he made sense. I focused on all the problems in government to the point that getting rid of government seemed completely logical. Black and white thinking. Of course, if spectrum people were the majority, some completely logical, unnuanced, unsocial system might work. But we're not the norm. The human brain did not evolve language and the frontal cortex to be logical. That was just a wonderful side effect. It evolved to gossip and socialize. Urban anthropologists will do eavesdropping research on random anonymous people, and 2/3 of what the average person talks about is gossip. Of course, getting rid of the government, because it has so many evolutionary problems, is like looking at the human body, with all its evolutionary flaws, like bad knees and bad backs, detachable retinas, a uterus that bleeds, and a myriad of other physiological and psychological problems, and thinking, well, in that case, we should just kill all humans. The same is true for the medical industry. See all the problems that are happening in the medical industry, but if you actually looked back at early medicine, you'd realize just how far our medical industry has come. We need to fix the problem, not completely destroy it. When you look at any program in the government, you have to look at how things were before. Yes, government sucks, but how it was before the program, if it was done right, sucked more. This system and the world were not designed for people of the spectrum. It was designed for the majority, made up of neurotypical people with the ability to use and understand social nuance. Anti-statism and libertarianism make complete logical sense if you don't look at all the evidence, because the evidence tends to be illogical. It's heavily nuanced. Therefore, because it's illogical and not black and white, one can rationalize and make up facts all day about the state. In my family growing up, everything was decided by money. If we didn't have money, we had to work for it and earn money. Money was also used to punish us as kids in the form of fines. This system makes nothing but logical sense, especially to a capitalist, punishment-based mindset. It got to the point of religious, and my mom still holds strict libertarian-style ideas about money. It had many massive flaws. Mom had all the power and money, so it created a sort of learned helplessness in us kids. There was little to no giving involved, other than strictly at Christmas and birthdays. It emotionally separated the family, as the effort of giving over monetary value creates bonding. I was constantly in debt to my parents. All three boys ended up getting kicked out of the house because we couldn't afford to pay rent, even though our lives and job skills were never honed. I spent at least 5 years in debt and being extremely passive after high school because I had major learned helplessness from my constant indebtedness. The libertarian mindset is punishment-based, cause and effect. It's very logical to an Aspie. Unfortunately, especially if they don't understand psychology, preventative systems, and human social bonds and nuances, they won't understand the other side. My girlfriend, on the other hand, had a very communist-style upbringing. Actually more traditional Scandinavian, but that's beside the point. Money value wasn't very important, the effort was. They traded favors regardless of the amount of money. This prevented a lot of negative impacts she would have had and helped her prepare for the social realm. To an Aspie not raised in this system made no sense to me. A favor-based system ensured it could be abused. However, I didn't grasp that social pressures kept much of it low. Mind you, there were several downsides to the system, such as the lack of practice in dealing with money, and the nearly Confucian pressure she has when someone asks her to do something, even if that person has screwed her over before or has no real right to ask her to do something, and the ensuing guilt that follows if she doesn't. I was a libertarian when we first met, and trying to talk about our political ideas and our views on the family was like speaking two different languages. I had the same issue whenever I tried to debate a communist whenever I first started talking on here. I tried explaining my views and thought I just had problems explaining it to her, but she couldn't explain her views because they required nuance, so neither of us agreed. A hybrid system of socialism and capitalism works best. Germany is a perfect example of this. Money is used to produce growth, but welfare is used to ensure no one goes without, though I have a feeling that many Germans will say that the government should be doing more. But there's a strong social community and stigmas against people who abuse the system. Pure capitalism relies on people owning one of everything, less sharing, more wealth comparison, and more moving to new jobs, breaking up close-knit communities. It's cold, it's heartless, and it divides people. Punishment is used in the most extreme cases in Germany, but prisons are actually used as rehabilitation in education and psychology, which reduces repeat offenders. Corporations pay much higher taxes because they have more regulation and less loopholes, but that tax creates top-notch infrastructure and education, ensuring the corporations stay and create jobs. Libertarians have such a black and white view, they don't understand why it's patriotic to pay taxes, and complain that mandatory taxes are 100% unfair and stealing. Why should someone have to pay government anything if they don't want to? Because this is a social contract we made together over a social evolutionary period in exchange for the ability to vote. If you don't want to vote, you don't have to pay taxes, meaning you can leave. We have idolized the fantasy of complete individuality that we can't even discuss the collective. The government belongs to everyone, and it's up to us as voters, though only a minority of the population on average actually votes, to decide how the government should spend that money. Not paying taxes is a form of theft from the rest of us. You only get those opportunities because everyone paid into the system. As the rich pay less and taxes decline, opportunities decline in a big way. Humans only got where we are today by working together. All the first world nations have tax and government systems, but also a regulated free market. It's a combo of varying degrees between socialism and capitalism. Something second and third world nations all tend to have in common is they're either overtaxed, be it extreme socialism, though many are considered second world nations, or the rich are massively undertaxed, leading to poverty. We were raised with many benefits of socialism: public roads, transportation, free education, standardized weights and measures, bacterial tested foods, toxic and efficacy tested drugs, military defense, many policies I disagree with, libraries, subsidized food and oil, policies I also disagree with, public water system, cheap student loans and grants, engineering regulations, public works via the Army Corps of Engineers. The list goes on. Not paying back into the system is stealing. If you want to go somewhere else, be our guest, but I'm sorry, you were raised on this. You kind of have to pay this back. Nuance is something Aspies suck at. We tend to hate the system made for and by neurotypicals, so we figure out extremely logically sounding ideas that we start off without the first understanding of social nuance. We crave to change the world and have our purely logical ideas become the norm, but because we can't grasp nuance, we tend to fail as soon as we start, many times holding dogmatically to an idea that has no chance of working in a neurotypical world.